This episode is for the writer who wants to finish their memoir in 2026. You have already invested years and years into this work, and you just want to be finished with your draft. You want to know that you are done. Heading into 2026, this is what I want for you. I, as your friendly neighborhood memoir editor. Yes, I want you to finish your memoir manuscript. I also want you to love it. I don't want you to finish it just to finish it. I want you to be obsessed with it. Because the thing is that if writing your way worked, you would have finished and published your memoir by now. So something isn't clicking in your process, in your head, in your mindset, in your perspective. Let's talk about why this is and then how to shift it going into 2026. Let's go. You are listening to the Memoir Method podcast, the place for writers, readers, and anyone who appreciates the collective power of our stories. In this podcast, we explore the impact of memoir alongside an examination of writing techniques and strategies used in the genre. Whether you are a writer looking for inspiration and guidance or a passionate reader seeking meaningful connections through shared experiences, the Memoir Method podcast is your go-to conversation spot. I'm your host, Charlotte, editor, writer, and the heart behind Charlotte Writes. Let's get started. I have been in the publishing industry for 15 years now, and I have been working specifically with memoir writers since 2020. I have been surrounded by this work for a long time, and I've picked up on a few patterns that come up with memoir writers over and over. And I want to start with highlighting some of those. So writers come to me with some variation of the same problems. I can't find the thread of my memoir. I can't figure out the best structure for this. I feel crushed under the weight of everything that I've already written. That was something verbatim someone said to me a couple years ago. I don't know what I don't know. And it all comes down to this deep confusion about what you've been writing. You've had this idea, you took it and ran with it. You had a lot of inspiration and motivation and excitement. I call that first draft energy over here. And it's really important, but it can only take you so far. So you've invested hours and hours, years, really, into this manuscript. And you're at the point where you cannot figure out why it hasn't come together yet. That's a really, really frustrating place to be because you have all of this time and effort and energy, money sometimes invested into this project, into this memoir, and you don't have a finished draft to show for it yet. You don't have something that you feel is good to show for all of this work. Once you work through that wave of overwhelm and discouragement, you'll usually buck up and recommit. You come up with a new way to revise, a new writing routine, something, because clearly you just need to keep working on it. You are committed enough to this. You're not ready to give up. You're not going to give up. You're going to figure it out. So you just spend more time in your draft. The work, time, energy, they have to pay off at some point, right? This is where I want to interrupt you because, again, I see this pattern a lot. More rewriting will not get your memoir where you want it to be. Recommitting more hours in a week to writing will not finish your draft. Time does not do that. And it feels counterintuitive. More time writing does not equate to a finished draft, and especially not one that you love. So the problem isn't your discipline. It's not your writing routine. It's not your effort. You're actually really, really good at all of that. And when we pair that commitment, that investment of energy and time with what I'm about to talk about, that is what will finish your draft, my friend. So you're investing this time, energy, sometimes money into perfecting your manuscript. Here's the problem. You don't actually know what you're writing. And stay with me because I can hear you say, but this is my story, Charlotte. I've lived it. Of course I know what I'm writing. Okay. If that was a thought that ran through your head and you're like, well, that's rude. How can you say I don't know what I'm writing? It's my life. I want you to start a stopwatch and pretend that you're talking to me and explaining to me what your memoir is about. Whenever I meet with writers for the first time, especially on those free discovery calls, 30-minute calls that I have set up in the month, I always ask you to tell me what you're writing. Tell me about your memoir. So pretend that you're talking to me, explaining to me what your memoir is about. You can pause, do that. I'll wait. Okay, how long did that take you? If you spent more than 30, 45 seconds explaining what your memoir is about, then you actually do not have the level of creative clarity that you need to finish your memoir. Usually, I have writers who will spend 10 to 15 minutes talking straight, like just straight talking to me while they explain to me what their memoir's about. Every time. Every time this happens, that's why they haven't finished. Okay. That indicates to me that they are not clear enough on what their story is to be able to finish it, to be able to know what to revise and how to tackle it. So that first draft energy, we've talked about that before here on the podcast. That will carry you far. That initial burst of inspiration and excitement and motivation, that can carry you really, really far. It will not be enough to get you across the finish line. If you actually want to finish your memoir, you will inevitably reach a point where you will need more clarity on what you're writing, who you're writing for, and why they're going to care about it. When you don't have this creative clarity, when that's lacking in your process, that is when you end up tinkering with the same paragraphs, reworking the same set of scenes, and rewriting the same chapters that you thought you tackled 6 months ago. And a side effect of this constant rewriting is that you start to not really like what you're writing. You think it's just fine. It's just fine. You're not excited about it. And it starts to feel like a chore instead of a passion, instead of something that you really care about, instead of this vision that you had going into it. So let's talk about a client I started working with in 2025. She came to me a little exasperated. She had tried working with a couple of other editors before, and it wasn't a good fit. These editors came recommended by a hybrid publisher. They didn't really get what this author was saying, and they didn't understand her actual story very well. She was very frustrated. I could just feel the tension when I was speaking to this writer. I could feel that mismatch between her and this other editing experience. And it really created a lack of trust in the process and editing professionals. And it made it so that this writer kept putting off working on her manuscript. She would procrastinate and she wouldn't actually do what needed to be done. And frankly, she didn't really know what needed to be done because she didn't trust her editors. They didn't get her vision. They didn't get what she actually wanted to say. She also didn't know what she wanted to say. I'll get to that in a minute. Because when she knew what to do, she was really good at sitting down and writing. But without direction that she needed, she just ended up putting it off. And she also came to me really, really wanting to finish. She really wanted to get this book done. Because she had a deep conviction in her work, she needs to figure out how to translate her compelling and meaningful story to the page in a way that is easy and fun to read. So when we started work together, I read through her manuscript like I do with all of my private clients. I read everything that they've written so far so that I can literally be on the same page as you. That's part of working with me one-on-one, is that full manuscript evaluation. So I read through all of that. And then I started implementing my memoir method with her. So instead of diving straight into rewrites, which she'd done enough of already, we took a different angle. We went deep into the foundation of her memoir. I walked her through specific exercises so that she could figure out exactly what she was writing with her story, who she was writing it for, why that reader would care about it. And then we got to sort through the structure. Then I got to start giving her specific feedback on her scenes and her voice and her style. After we did that foundational work, then we got to play with how to implement it into her memoir manuscript. It gave us a filter, a lens through which to see and engage with what she'd already written. We got to play and make sure that she was amplifying the right parts of her story. And the coolest thing happened. So after just a handful of calls in our time together, I was giving her homework. I was guiding her on what to tackle next. After just a few calls of this, she actually started emailing me with her revision plan. And the best part about this is that her takeaways, her assessments of each chapter, they were almost exactly what I would have recommended if I had been leading the revisions. But the work that we had done with just this first phase of the memoir method, it was coming together in true creative clarity for this writer, and she was starting to lead her revisions. She started knowing exactly what to work on. So when you know what your story is actually saying to your reader, revisions become wildly straightforward. All of that overwhelm, all of that noise drops away because you know exactly what you are saying. This writer, she's not haphazardly rewriting anymore. She's done with that way of editing. That chapter of her writing life is closed. She knows exactly what it is that she's writing. Now this writer knows exactly what to work on. Even more, she knows how to revise it. She's taken this structure of my memoir method and she's implemented it into her draft in a way that works for her creative process. And now her clarity is letting me do my best work as an editor. When I'm reading through her revisions, I can actually edit them. Those other editors didn't work for her because she needed to get crystal clear on her story and its message first. Now I get to touch base with her. I get to continue guiding her, but she is leading the way. And I am slipping more and more into editor mode and less out of coaching mode, which is exactly what I want when I work with writers. She's taking the reins, and I get to dig into that actual editing element so that her revisions start clicking together faster and faster, way more efficient, way more clear than they have in literal years. So let's zoom out. She came to me overwhelmed, confused, a little exasperated. And with this shift from the muddled rewrites to clear revision that she's experienced, she knows exactly what needs to happen for her to finish this draft. She is the one mapping out what her next steps are, and I just get to support her in amplifying her story and helping her refine her actual writing. In just a handful of calls together, we flipped from her needing me to take the lead and tell her where to go and what to focus on, to her sending me her revisions plan, telling me what she needed from me, and then mapping out how she's going to finish her memoir draft. This shift is not the result of more discipline or effort. She'd already shown me that she can do that because she wrote a draft. This shift happened because she used the memoir method to tap into honed, focused, and personal creative clarity. That is the force that will ensure she finishes and publishes her draft in 2020. When you have this creative clarity, this is what I focus on first with every writer that I work with. We focus on that creative clarity first, and then we tackle what's actually on the page. When you have this creative clarity, you cut down your actual writing time. So yes, you're really good at investing time into your memoir. I know that about you already. When you have this creative clarity, that time, you do more with that time. When you know what you're actually writing, the time that you do spend writing will be more effective, and you'll know exactly where to focus that time and energy. Creative clarity means that you know exactly what you need to revise. Instead of spitballing and guessing at what's not working, with creative clarity, you'll know exactly what's not working and why. You know guessing. You don't have to guess anymore. That's not an editing plan. That's not an editing plan. That's just a rewrite loop. Okay? Creative clarity means that you know what to revise, and even better, you know how to fix it. Best of all, this level of clarity brings your creativity back online. You know how it feels to constantly be revisiting your work when, like I said, it starts to feel like a chore. It's not fun anymore. When you know what you're writing, when you know what your story is actually saying, writing feels fun again. And that's when you start to make real progress. When you can map out your revisions, that means that you can see the finish line. That means that you finish. This is my favorite work to do with my writers because yes, they finish their memoir manuscripts. Even better, they love what they're writing. This writer that I'm telling you about, a few calls in, we were starting to get into the revisions once we had established her foundation. We were starting to work with that. She was right in the middle of making that shift into leading her own revisions. And she sent me an email that said, hey, can you take a look at chapter 5? I followed your advice. I did what you told me. And I actually think it's really, really good. She was so proud of this work. And she was right. It was really good. It was so much better than what she had started with. Like, that is what gets to happen when you write this way, when you revise this way, when you stop trying to write the way that you have been because it's not working anymore. When you can make this shift, Your creativity comes back online and you start falling in love with what you're actually writing. That's what I want for you. It's such a fun feeling. And when you can write from that place, your writing is so much better. It's so much better. Your voice is so much stronger when you are writing something that you love. You cannot be obsessed with your own work. You can't fall head over heels in love with your story and your reader if you don't know your reader, if you don't know what your story is actually about. This is why my work as a writing coach and editor is different from anything else my clients have found. This is why I'm rarely my client's first editor, but I'm usually their last. This is why the Memoir method is a singular framework and experience for writers, because I tap you into your story, your clarity, and then give you a toolbox of how to amplify that. You get to figure out your story, your voice, and I get to support you. It is my favorite work to do. It's my favorite thing that I've really dialed in 2025 this year. So I use the Memoir method to help writers in a few different ways. This really is my signature framework for helping writers. So with this writer that I just told you about, I walked her privately through the Memoir method. She's a one-on-one client. If you are looking for that high level of support and guidance, go ahead and email me at hello@bookishedits.com, and we can talk about how to get you on my schedule for 2026. I do have a couple of openings for private clients starting in January. And don't forget, that does include a full manuscript evaluation on your work. Side note, for any writers who come on this month, as a private client, I'm tacking on 2 additional calls to my one-on-one package as a little holiday bonus to you. So my base one-on-one package includes 10 60-minute calls with me. Again, we really get into that coaching, that foundation, and then into actual edits and revisions together. So the base package is 10, and this month for any new one-on-one writers, I'm tacking on 2 extra calls for a total of 12. So that's like 2 extra hours with me as a little present for you. So once again, if you are looking for that high-level one-on-one support, go ahead and email me and we will get that set up. I also walk writers through this shift inside of the Memoir Method cohort. One of the benefits of working with an editing professional is that I can see your blind spots where you can't. I know that earlier we laughed a little bit about how, well, Charlotte, what are you talking about? I don't know what I'm writing about because this is my story. This is my life. You have blind spots. There are things about your story that you can't see because you're so close to it. I can see it. With my private clients, I am able to point that out. And in this cohort version of the Memoir Method program, I will also be pointing out your blind spots in this setup as well. So the Memoir Method cohort, this is 8 weeks where I walk with you inside of the Memoir Method so that you are no longer spinning in those thoughts of, oh crap, what do I do now? So I take you step by step through my Memoir Method curriculum. I pair that with custom feedback on your work, weekly group coaching workshop calls. So this is a course coaching hybrid container. Yes, I pull you through this curriculum and then we implement it together. I am checking you every single week. I'm checking your work. I'm giving you feedback. We workshop together. You pace with me for 8 weeks. You will make sense of your draft. You will have your revisions plan. You will be actively revising. You will have your finish line in sight. By the end of these 8 weeks, you'll be well into those intentional revisions. You will complete the cohort with a custom publication plan for you and your memoir draft. Because like I said, I don't want you to just finish your draft. I want you to love it. And that is what we do together inside of the Memoir Method. I have all of the details for you in the show notes of this episode where you can learn more about the program. I actually ran the Memoir Method in a similar way a few years ago, and then I retired it. And then as I have been working with more writers, as I have understood my actual role with you a little bit better, again, that melding of writing coach and editor, I have realized that bringing back that format of education and integration that's what's going to help you the most. You don't just need the information. You need someone to help you see your blind spots. You need someone to help you integrate this information and this new perspective. And the Memoir Method cohort is really a magical place. I loved it the first time I did it. And this new upgraded version, the curriculum is so much deeper. I'm even more hands-on than I was before. Like, this is a program that I haven't seen anywhere else for memoir writers, and I'm so excited about it. The winter cohort kicks off in January, and I would love to see you there. So again, the link to that is in the show notes. And then finally, if you want to understand this rewrite loop that I described earlier in the episode, if that cycle sounds painfully familiar, you will want to go and watch my free training, The Memoir Breakthrough Cycle. I will include an access link for you in the show notes. This is I break down this whole cycle, this psychology of how your brain works creatively when you get stuck in that rewrite loop. And then I show you how to break out of that. And again, we'll access that clarity that will allow you to finish your draft. So I know that you feel like you're behind. Maybe you started off 2025 thinking, this is the year I'm going to finish my memoir draft, and then you didn't. You're here listening to this episode, wondering, what can I do different next year? This is what you can do. You can move differently as a memoir writer, as a memoir author. The title of this episode is Make 2026 Your Author Year. This is how we do it. We come at our story differently. You come at your work as an author. You start to think different. You tap into that clarity. You're not behind. You're not untalented. You only feel this way because you're not clear enough on your story yet. And that is exactly why I created the memoir method. When you write with this level of creative clarity, everything about your memoir will click into place. I've seen it happen over and over and over again with my writers. You become the writer who revises a chapter, sends it to me, and says, hey, I think this is actually really good. And it is. It is really, really good. You become obsessed with your work. This is the writing experience that I want for you. This is what I excel at when I help my writers reorient their writing perspective and their writing process. Again, you can head to the show notes for links to everything I've mentioned in this episode. I have one last episode dropping this year, the second part of this month's Why It Works or Not. I'm so grateful for 2025 and that I've been able to support you this year and guide you through your writing and through your revisions. Your stories are amazing. I am so honored that I get to be a part of this process with you. Your story really is worth writing. I cannot wait to work with even more of you in 2026. And I will see you then. You've just listened to an episode of the Memoir Method podcast. The Memoir Method podcast is presented by Charlotte Writes. If you liked what you heard, the best way to support the show is to subscribe through your preferred podcast player. And if you're feeling especially inspired, I'd love it if you left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Leaving a review really does help other readers and writers like yourself find the show. If you want to continue the conversation, you can find me on my website at charlottewrites.co or on Instagram at charlottejanewrites. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time. And remember that you have a story that matters.